It's been almost 4 years since the saga of the House of the Dragon began, retelling the epic civil war that effectively ended in the destruction of the dragons. Following which the Targaryens never quite recovered their power and status fully. Personally, I love the Game of Thrones universe, and I love dragons, so this series has been a match made in heaven for me. Now with the 3rd season of the show underway, things are finally gearing up toward the endgame, as almost all the major dragons have assembled to soar across the skies of Westeros one last time. At the start of the 3rd season, the Blacks have 7 dragons, while the Greens have 3. And those of you who are keeping up with the new season know, this number has already been changed in the first episode. I think it's therefore safe to say that it will continue throughout the season. In this video, I'll be talking about every dragon and rider still alive. Depending on when you're watching this video, things could have changed, so consider this a spoiler warning. With all that out of the way, join me as we travel through Westeros in what might just be the prelude to the final Dance of the Dragons. Let's begin. Vhagar, Aemon Targaryen. I always believe in starting big, and it doesn't get much bigger than Vhagar, the last remaining dragon from the time of Aegon the Conqueror. It once served as the Mount of Visenya Targaryen, Aegon's sister consort, and now calls Aemon Targaryen, the son of King Viserys Targaryen and Alicent Hightower, its master. This dragon is the single biggest ace in the hole that the Greens have in this civil war, as it's the largest dragon in existence during this time period. However, despite being so gargantuan, it's almost shocking how well this beast navigates through the air, terrorizing its foes. We've already seen Lucerys Velaryon and his dragon Arax fall victim to it, and I think it's fair to say that his list of victims will only continue to grow in this current season. Such as this dragon's might that conquered the 7 kingdoms in its younger days, that just its mere presence in the Green camp balances out the scales in terms of firepower, despite them having a lesser number of dragons. With Vhagar's raw power and battle experience in combination with Aemon's ruthlessness and cunning, the threat of Vhagar continues to loom large in the 3rd season of the House of the Dragon. Dreamfire, Helaena Targaryen. If the Greens had just one single dragon to fly into battle at the start of the war, they should have gone with Dreamfire, and I'm convinced that they would have won the war almost instantly. Since we hardly get to see much of her, you might not agree with me, but allow me to enlighten you about who Dreamfire truly is. Hatched during the reign of Aegon the Conqueror, Dreamfire was bonded with Rhaena Targaryen, Aegon's granddaughter. I think it's pretty well known how dragons grow larger and more powerful as they age, so by the time the Dance of the Dragons rolls around, Dreamfire is already one of the oldest and largest dragons, behind only Vhagar and Vermithor. This explains Aemon's desperation to ride her, as we see in the TV show when he's making his way through the dragon pit. A dragon breathes fire on him. This blue beast is none other than Dreamfire, who's bonded to Helaena Targaryen, his sister. Helaena Targaryen, however, has a gentle disposition compared to her brother, and refuses to ride her dragon into combat, as she cannot stand the idea of harming others. Helaena is a Targaryen with a rare gift of foresight that allows her to see visions, which only add to her burden and desire not to join the conflict, even when the Greens are desperate for more dragons. I almost forgot to mention, it's widely suspected by fans and lore experts that Dreamfire is the mother of Daenerys Targaryen's 3 dragons, as some of her eggs were stolen and sold to Essos decades prior. While Dreamfire and Helaena might not be burning their way through the battlefield, they still exist in the 3rd season as one of the few remaining dragons and dragon riders still around. Tessarion, Daeron Targaryen. I think it wouldn't be wrong to say that Tessarion was the most anticipated dragon to appear in the 3rd season of House of the Dragon for many fans. The Blue Queen, as she is called, is one of the most beautiful dragons in existence, with her dark cobalt blue scales and nimble athletic body, which makes her both stunning and dangerous on the battlefield. Due to being much younger and smaller than the likes of Vhagar, Dreamfire, and Vermithor, Tessarion relies on her agility and speed to outmaneuver her opponents in battle. Her rider is even more impressive in my opinion. Daeron Targaryen, the youngest son of Viserys and Alicent, grew up far away from the toxic environment of King's Landing. He was sent away at a very young age to serve as a squire in Old Town under her mother's family house, Hightower. I believe this is the main cause for him growing up to be much more well-adjusted, courteous, and well-liked by everyone. However, don't let his genteel manners fool you. He is, after all, called Daeron the Daring, due to his exploits on the battlefield. As the one shining light of the Greens' otherwise unstable household, I believe Daeron and Tessarion will be pivotal in what transpires in the current season. Syrax, Rhaenyra Targaryen. Named after the old Valyrian goddess, out of all the dragons and their riders that I've covered so far in this video, none of them shares the same degree of bond that Syrax has with Rhaenyra. In the House of the Dragon TV show, I think you'll remember that the two seem to be connected to the point that when Rhaenyra is going into painful premature labor, we are shown Syrax miles away shrieking and writhing in pain at the same moment, mirroring her rider state. Despite not being the largest or the most powerful dragon in the show, due to them having grown up together as Rhaenyra bonded with it at the age of 7, Syrax is fiercely loyal to her rider. In the TV show, they've designed her in such a way with her iconic golden yellow scales that you can't help but think that she mirrors Rhaenyra's own regal stature. The reason why she isn't as battle-hardened as the other dragons like Caraxes and Melis is that, being the mount of the future queen who was also a mother of young children, Syrax has never flown into combat with Rhaenyra. However, now with the Dance of Dragons reaching its crescendo, it shouldn't be too long before we get to see Syrax stretching her wings and soaring over the battlefield to fight alongside her mistress. Caraxes, Daemon Targaryen. Hands down my favorite dragon from the entire series, Caraxes the Bloodworm is the exact opposite of Syrax, having flown into numerous conflicts, leading it to become one of the most deadly and battle-hardened dragons of the Dance of Dragons era. Caraxes was not actually bonded at birth to Daemon Targaryen. Instead, he existed long before his famous rider was ever born. I believe that he was originally claimed by Daemon's uncle Aemon Targaryen, who flew Caraxes into battle against the Dornish pirates in the Fourth Dornish War. However, Caraxes would lose his first rider when Aemon would be tragically killed by a crossbow bolt on Tarth, leaving his dragon riderless. Then, I think around 105 AC, Daemon Targaryen would claim him, and the two would become a perfect match and win many victories, and terrorize the skies of Westeros thereafter. Most notably, Daemon and Caraxes would play a pivotal role in the War of the Stepstones, destroying the forces of the Kargas Drakkar, aka the Crab Feeder, and even earning the title of the King of the Narrow Seas, which he relinquishes to his brother King Viserys out of loyalty and love. I think it's pretty clear why. By the time the Targaryen Civil War is under full swing, Caraxes is a seasoned killer just like his rider. I love how the showrunners really leaned into the worm aspect of his moniker with regard to giving him an almost serpentine look in the show. It just grants him that extra bit of aura which sets him apart from the rest of the dragons. I think Caraxes and Daemon have a lot more victims to claim before the end, and we will get to see just that in this current season. Moondancer, Baela Targaryen. Moondancer is one of the newer generation Targaryen dragons, and while she might lack the power and size of her older kin, she more than makes up for it with her speed and agility, just like Tessarion. The Moondancer has one of the more unique designs in the TV show in my opinion, with a ridge-like spine running along her neck and a tiger stripe pattern of dark blue scales that cover her body. We've already seen a glimpse of her in action in what was one of my favorite scenes from the second season of the House of the Dragon. In episode 3 of that season, Moondancer gives chase to Sir Criston Cole, Gwaine Hightower, and a small company of his men. The chase sequence is thrilling, as Moondancer dives from high above and streaks across the valley, flying barely higher than the ground. Unfortunately for her, Criston Cole and his company manage to escape into the forest, which makes Moondancer give up her pursuit. That entire incident also highlights the expert dragon riding skills of her rider Baela Targaryen, whose father is none other than Daemon Targaryen. Baela, in my opinion, has inherited her mother Laena Valerion's fierceness, who is actually a rider of Vhagar herself, and her father's tactical ruthlessness. While Team Black seems to be having her ride reconnaissance missions, I think this season might show Baela and Moondancer what they're truly capable of. Seasmoke, Addam of Hull. One of the more beautiful dragons in the entire show, in my opinion, with its pale silver-gray scales and red fins, Seasmoke is at its prime age of fighting. I believe it was previously bonded to Sir Laenor Velaryon, Rhaenyra's first husband. However, after his apparent death or exile, Seasmoke dwelt on Dragonstone, refusing all who tried to approach him, until Addam came along. I think those of you who are lore nerds might have already spotted a problem with this. For the rest, let me explain briefly. In the books, Laenor is killed outright in a crowded market, but the show decided to grant him somewhat of a happy ending by faking his death and allowing him to escape Essos, with his lover Carl Corey. The problem this presents is that I think we all know that a dragon will only accept a new rider if their previous one is dead. It's a bond for life. So either the showrunners are circumventing the lore when it comes to this, or it means Laenor has been killed off-screen for Addam of Hull to take his place as Seasmoke's rider. As for Addam himself, he and his brother Aelin are what the Targaryens call Dragonseed, which basically means a potential dragon rider, due to them having the blood of Valyria from being the bastards of Targaryens or Velaryons. In Addam's case, he's speculated to be the son of Laenor, but there are theories out there that suggest he might be the son of Laenor's father, Lord Corlys Velaryon, the Sea Serpent. The Blacks, finding themselves outgunned by the Greens in terms of dragons, initiate what is called the sowing of the seeds to find Targaryen and Velaryon bastards, to claim riderless dragons to bolster their ranks. This is how Seasmoke and Addam of Hull come to be bonded, and if their exploits in the books are mirrored in the TV series, let me tell you, we're in for a lot of fun. Vermithor, Hugh Hammer. One of the deadliest dragons in terms of power, size, and battle experience, outside Vhagar of course, has to be Vermithor. At the time of the events of the show, this guy is the second largest and oldest dragon in Westeros. It's a dragon just like Vhagar who has the potential to completely flip the war in favor of the Blacks, but has been living riderless beneath the caverns of Dragonstone ever since the death of its previous rider, King Jaehaerys Targaryen I, who brought decades of peace and prosperity to Westeros, part of which was on the back of Vermithor's might, which discouraged any rebellion. When Rhaenyra sends out her call for the sowing of the seeds, one of the dragons she intends to be tamed is Vermithor, who is now over 100 years old. However, I think it's fair to say that this attempt turns into a veritable massacre, as the bronze dragon begins slaughtering all those bastards gathered there in a way that justifies the name Bronze Fury, until only 2 survivors remain. However, as it looks like it's going to turn one of the survivors into charcoal, Hugh Hammer draws its attention and appears to be defiant in his face, which earns him Vermithor's respect and ultimately his allegiance. In this way, Hugh Hammer, a bastard blacksmith, becomes one of the most powerful dragon lords in all of Westeros at that moment. Prior to this, Hugh is depicted in the TV series as being an impoverished blacksmith, who's desperately trying to make ends meet to feed his sick daughter, due to the war's blockade causing a famine. I mean, just think about going from that to literally having the second strongest dragon of the era. It will be interesting to see Hugh's character develop as the season progresses. If you've read the books, you already know the fate of Vermithor and Hugh Hammer, but without spoiling anything, let me just tell the rest of you. This duo is going to be one of the most important pairings regarding the future battles that we'll watch on this show. Silverwing, Ulf White. In my opinion, if ever a writer didn't deserve their dragon, it has to be this one. Silverwing is an ancient and massive dragon who's the mate of Vermithor and was ridden originally by Queen Alysanne Targaryen, the wife of Vermithor's master Jaehaerys I. Due to her rider's legacy being one of peace, despite being a dragon from the early era of the Targaryen rule, Silverwing was largely docile and mild-mannered towards humans, unlike her mate. When the sowing of the seeds happens, that I've already touched upon with the previous 2 dragons and their dragon riders, Ulf the White, who's a drunkard and an opportunist, gets swept along with the rest of the bastards to Dragonstone, and into the caverns to test their fortune or die in the process. As I mentioned earlier, the sowing of the seeds quickly turns into the Red Sowing, as Vermithor the Bronze Fury goes on a rampage, slaying all of those would-be dragon riders. Amidst the chaos of blood and fury, the cowardly Ulf flees deeper into the Dragonstone caverns, where he stumbles into a lair filled with eggs. Just as he steps on an egg, Ulf hears a snarl behind him, and as he turns back, he notices a large dragon looming over him. However, instead of being eaten or burned alive, Silverwing simply nudges the frightened commoner with her snout, as Ulf realizes what has just happened. The next thing we see is him flying over King's Landing on Silverwing, breaking all the regulations of dragon riding. Frankly, I think Ulf getting Silverwing highlights just how unpredictable dragons can be. Now, with one of the most degenerate individuals in all of Westeros on the back of one of the most powerful weapons in existence, it surely can't be good for anybody involved. But we'll have to wait and see how this pairing pans out. Tyraxes, Joffrey Velaryon. I think while talking about all the mighty dragons and their riders, it's easy to forget about someone like Tyraxes, a young dragon who's not yet big enough to fight in a large-scale battle. His rider is the third-born son of Princess Rhaenyra and Laenor Velaryon, but I believe he is rumored to be fathered by Sir Harwin Strong, like his brothers Jacaerys and Lucerys. Joffrey, unlike his namesake from the original show, is a brave and valiant prince who is fiercely loyal to his mother's claim to the Iron Throne. In a war that is consuming both Targaryens and their dragons faster than they can be replaced, I suspect even fledglings like Tyraxes and Joffrey will be dragged into the flames of war. I'm curious to see how the showrunner will pull this off, if it comes to that, because of the de-aging they did to Tyraxes and Joffrey. Although I've read the books and know what fate awaits them, the show could still take some creative liberties, so we'll just have to wait and see. Stormcloud, Aegon the Younger. Just like Tyraxes and Joffrey, Stormcloud and Aegon have also been de-aged for the TV series, due to which both the dragon and its future rider are still too young. Unlike in the books, where Stormcloud and Tyraxes are old enough to bear their riders across the sky, here they're kept in wooden traveling crates. Jane Eyre of the Vale, who was promised dragons to protect her keep, even dryly remarks, "I have hunting hounds that are more fearsome," when she sees both Tyraxes and Stormcloud for the first time. Just like Tyraxes, Stormcloud also bonded with its rider in the cradle. With the 2 pair of dragons and riders now making their way across the narrow sea, it will be interesting to see what roles they play further in this season. Sheepstealer, Rhaena Targaryen. The Sheepstealer is one of the 3 untamed dragons in Westeros, and it's regarding his taming where the TV series House of the Dragon massively deviates from the books. In the books, Sheepstealer is a wild dragon that has developed a taste for mutton and is notorious for raiding the local homesteads to get his favorite meal. In the books, his rider is a lowborn 16-year-old girl named Nettles, who feeds it mutton until it comes to accept and expect her, eventually letting the girl ride the dragon. I think it's important to note that this is the only case in the entire franchise where a dragon is tamed without one having the blood of Valyria in them, pure-blooded or not. Nettles tames him using just logic and bait. Sadly, they've decided to do away with it, instead granting the Sheepstealer to Rhaena Targaryen, the youngest daughter of Daemon Targaryen and Laena Velaryon, who had always desired a dragon of her own, especially after the egg she was supposed to be bonded with doesn't hatch. In the TV series, thanks to her managing to bond with Sheepstealer, the Blacks think they have gained an extra dragon, until it starts rampaging against both parties, having no sense of allegiance or training. This leads to a pivotal event, which I won't spoil here if you haven't watched the episode yet. The showrunner, Ryan Condal, I believe explained their choice to give Rhaena Sheepstealer by saying that the TV show tightly centers around internal family conflict, and it only felt fitting to give this arc to a character that had struggled due to being dragonless since Season 1. While I can see his point of view, I still feel that not having Nettles in the show is a missed opportunity, as the character has a pretty big fanbase in the franchise. There's also the fact that Rhaena does get her own dragon toward the end of the war in the books called Morning, which they could have used to symbolize a new dawn for the Targaryens after all the death and destruction. However, that's just my opinion. How do you feel about this? Let me know in the comments. Cannibal, wild, unclaimed. Out of all the dragons that I've discussed so far in this list, I feel none come close to exuding the same dread and terror as the dragon named Cannibal. One of 3 wild dragons on Dragonstone. Despite not seeing him in the show so far, we do know that he exists, as he's mentioned in the Season 1 finale by Daemon Targaryen, while taking inventory of Team Black's military prowess. In the books, as the name suggests, the cannibal gets its name from the fact that it primarily feeds on others of its own kind. There's no explanation for why he does that, but the only thing we know is that both in the books and the TV series, no one manages to tame him during the sowing. In the books, I think a few desperate individuals try, but are predictably slaughtered. But in the TV series, the Blacks outright avoid sending anyone to his lair, even though we know, as I said earlier, that he does exist in the show. According to local legends, Cannibal is said to have dwelt in Dragonstone long before the arrival of the Targaryens, which would make it one of the oldest living dragons in existence. However, this claim is refuted by most Grand Maesters who believe that he was hatched during the reign of Jaehaerys I or King Maegor, making him around 80 to 100 years old by the time of the Civil War. In the books, the cannibal never gets involved with the Targaryens and is alive by the time of the Dance of Dragons ends. His fate afterwards, I believe, is still a mystery. I really hope that we at least get to see a glimpse of the terror that this creature holds in the TV show, as he is the boogeyman of all dragons within this fantasy world. Grey Ghost, wild, unclaimed. The final unclaimed wild dragon of Dragonstone, the Grey Ghost, is an elusive silver-gray beast that prefers to live in isolation from both humans and others of its kind. According to the book lore, when the sowing happens, only Sheepstealer is found by the dragon seeds and tamed. No one comes close to discovering the whereabouts of the Grey Ghost, so he remains riderless throughout the Civil War, just as Cannibal. While I understand why the show refused to sow the dragon seeds attempting to bond with the cannibal, they seem to have ghosted the Grey Ghost without any apparent reason. I feel that if they had even shown us a brief scene of the dragon seed chasing the dragon only to be eluded each time, they would have really built up the hype for its appearance. If they hadn't shown the Sheepstealer this season, I would have assumed that they'd forgotten Daemon's words from the first season, so I'm still holding out hope from the appearance of these wild dragons. And that concludes all the dragons and their riders who are still around in House of the Dragon Season 3. However, I think by the end of the season, I don't need to be a genius to say that this number will be significantly reduced. Though it's sad and tragic, the show is centered around the Dance of Dragons. And although Season 3 isn't the final season for the show, we are approaching the last dance, and my only hopes are that they will go out in a blaze of glory. Finally, for those who are wondering what happened to Sunfire, because following the final episodes of the previous season, he's either missing or presumed dead by the characters, in the Season 2 finale, the usurper Aegon, if I'm not mistaken, clearly laments to Larys Strong saying, "My dragon is dead." I hope that clears up any misunderstandings you might have had watching this video. Now tell me, which dragon and its rider are you most excited to see in action this current season? Let me know in the comments below. For now though, it's time for me to say goodbye. I hope to see you soon in the next one. Until then, stay safe and stay marvelous.